Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Governmental Operations Standing Committee. I'm now calling it to order. And Madam Clerk, can you please read the Chamber Emergency Evacuation Plan announcement and public speaker guidelines?
Upon activation of the emergency alarm signal, all persons should immediately exit the building. Please use the exits to the left or right front of the council chamber or the east or west stairwell outside the rear doors of the chamber. Do not use elevators or escalators. After exiting the building, proceed down 9th Street and into the assembly area located in the former Public Safety Building parking lot. Able persons should assist visually and hearing impaired visitors with exiting the building. Public speaker guidelines. Individuals wishing to speak during public hearings and the public comment period are generally allowed 3 minutes to speak. Persons appearing before the committee are not allowed to campaign for public office, promote private business ventures, use language of a personal nature which insults or demeans any person, including comments directed at public officials or staff members that are not related to their official duties, or address or question staff members directly. All questions are to be directed to the committee chair. Failure to adhere to the guidelines may result in speakers forfeiting any remaining time, and further disciplinary action is necessary, which could include barring from attendance at future meetings of the committee for a period of 6 months. And Madam Chair, all members of the committee are in attendance today with the exception of Ms. Gibson, and you do have a quorum.
Thank you so much. Let's move on to public comment.
Public comment is now open. Is there anyone present who wishes to address this committee regarding items not on today's agenda? Madam Chair, seeing none and no one signed up to speak virtually before the 10 a.m. deadline, the public comment period is now closed and back to the committee.
Thank you so much. Can we move on to approval of minutes?
There is no minutes for this meeting, Madam Chair. Next meeting.
Okay, wonderful. Well, in that case, let's move along to our presentation. I believe we have Tyrone Alexander, our Director of Human Resources. Welcome.
Good afternoon, Chairman Gordon and Vice Chair Agubacher. Tyrone Alexander from the Department of Human Resources. I'm here this afternoon to provide an update on the Human Resources Department engagement and training information that we're doing. The agenda is as follows. We'll give you a brief overview of our engagement. We'll talk about both the 2022 and 2025 survey results, talk briefly about current and future activities that we have planned. We'll talk about training and development overviews, outstanding audit items, and then I'll ask you to answer for questions. Okay, our engagement study, our engagement process really starts back in 2022, 2023. Once again, back in fiscal year 2023, former Mayor LeVar Stoney announced a comprehensive review of the city's benefits and compensation programs with the goal of becoming an employer of choice. The goal of an employer of choice is to attract, innovate, and motivate individuals, respond to concerns of its employees, invest in professional development, and ensure accountability to both employees and stakeholders, and offer diverse benefit offerings and competitive compensation. To be an employer of choice, the city must evaluate the needs of its employees, consider current and future workplace trends. The review was conducted by gathering feedback and using impartial analysis to determine specific and actual recommendations to become an employer of choice. The report basically consisted of 6 pillars: culture and employee engagement, recruitment and selection, compensation and benefits, professional development, and performance accountability. Our former Chief Administrative Officer, Lincoln Saunders, and Deputy Chief Administrative Officer, Sabrina Joy Hott, led the review, along with SIR, or Southeastern Institute of Research, who provided labor and market data information. We had about 250 employees at that time with unique job titles from a variety of city departments that participated in these engagement studies. And the recommendations that on the aspect of the culture and engagement are on the slide. They basically found the findings were to improve communication between and engage between departments, create a positive, respectful, and feedback-safe work environment where employees feel heard, and encourage work teams in internal and external motivation for job performance. The implementation strategies that were discussed in the report was 4, strengthen the employee relations, equal opportunity function, develop training, educational materials, and processes for labor relations, conduct training for supervisors and managers on workplace expectations and leadership strategies, and conduct employment engagement activities. I do want to go back and say this is an evolving process. So we have made some strides over the last couple of years as we implemented our employee of choice strategy. This scorecard here basically gives an update as to where we're at with those 2023 strategies. First of all, strengthen the employee relations function that has been completed. We do have an employee engagement unit that is part of my department. Previously, that was not the case before I arrived, but we do have that department. That department is receiving complaints, concerns, issues relative to the employee experience, and they're monitoring those issues and working those accordingly. Training and labor relations training and development, basically that is in process and ongoing. As you guys are aware, we have 5 bargaining units. Last year, we did training on 3 of those bargaining units. Today is our last training for our Teamsters contract. We had a total of 16 training sessions throughout the month of June and July. Training our supervisors and managers on how to manage within the collective bargaining contract. Training for supervisors and managers, this is ongoing, and I'll talk more about that in my presentation. We have created various training courses over the last year and a half. We revamped our new leader orientation, and we're beta testing the online performance management system that I will talk about later in the presentation. And then employment engagement activities, these are continuous. We have a employment engagement committee, which is a group of volunteer employees that assists us in planning employee-related activities throughout the year. As I mentioned earlier about our employer of choice, and with the report that happened in 2023, tons and tons of information came out of that report. Some of the key things that we have been able to initiate since that 2023 report is an increase in our salaries to a minimum of $20 an hour, our participation as you know in the Richmond retirement system, our employee wellness and health clinic process, tuition assistance with Reynolds Community College, our language access program, employee referral program. We've expanded our training and development. We've done more engagement activities. And one stat I'm very, very proud of is our returning employees. Since January of 2024, when we went to VRS up to now, we've had 537 employees who have previously left the city, who have come back to the city due to changes that they've heard about our culture, our climate, and or our benefits and pay structures. So very, very pleased about that, and it's showing us that we are moving the needle. A couple other items just to let you be aware of. Our tuition assistance and professional development, that was something that rang quite clearly in that report in 2023. And I'm pleased to announce as of June 30th, we've had 129 people participate in our tuition assistance programs and or our programs with Reynolds Community College. Out of this number, we've had 109 employees that participate in the tuition assistance program. This program is one in which the employee we're paying a percentage of their cost for them attending classes for a degree. We have 66 of the 109 people who are in our public safety areas. We have 54 that are fire and another 12 that are police. So this is really, really exciting. So I'm really, really pleased with that. We had 20 employees that went through our professional development programs through Reynolds Community College. Most of those positions are in our skilled trades and services area. We've had 10 people that received their CDL training, and then we've had 7 that went through HVAC training. And as you are aware, it's really, really hard to get skilled trades individuals through anywhere, particularly working in city government. So we've really invested time and money into being able to train our employees to move forward and move up in these positions. Let's see a couple other interesting stats that I want to share with you. Our turnover rate and separation rate, as of June 30th, we're projecting 10.3%. And our separation rate outside of terminations for cause is right around 8.1%. Our vacancy rate at this time through the third quarter, because we're right now aggregating the final data, is right around at 15.3%. We're thinking that number may go down to about 15%, 14.9. But once again, we're right now just doing our final, reviewing our final numbers so that we can get our report out within the next few days. Let's see. Let's talk about employee engagement and talk about some of the engagement activities that we've been doing. Why does engagement matter from an employee perspective? Employees who are engaged have higher autonomy, higher ownership for the organization. They put in more discretionary effort, basically meaning they're going to go out of their way to kind of do what they can to support the organization. And resiliency is built, meaning it just gives these people better opportunities to be able to be resilient and help us as we go through the turns and tides of work in the city government. Once again, that's saying employees ride the wave in tough times along with the organization, and they thrive in the good times. The pictures on here are just some of the activities that we've done over the last year and a half, which show some of our engagement activities. Some of our past events that we have done is ice cream socials. Those have been periodically throughout the years. We do a big dig with Public Service Appreciation Week. This is normally the first week of May. We do an annual Veterans Day program. We are right now in the midst of planning our second Service Awards program. The first one we did was last year. We had like 575 employees that were recognized based upon years of service, 5 years and 5-year increments. We did have an employee that had 60 years of service with the city. So we were very, very pleased to be able to acknowledge that individual. And then holiday socials, which is basically an event that we're going to try to do for everyone at the end of the year to celebrate the holidays. Just for some participation numbers, looking at our participation numbers for those events, you can tell on the screen we've had about 1,300 people that participated in our Public Service Appreciation Week. We had 636 people at the Service Awards, with 570 of those recipients, 300 plus folks with our ice cream social, 274 people in our last year's holiday program. And for Veterans Day, we had 65 total veterans that actually attended that program, which we're really excited about. If you go back and look at some of the Gallup information as it relates to participation rates, the average engagement participation rate is around 32%. Our highest participation rate in our programs that we've had has been around 29.3%. So we're really not off that much off the national average. And then our lowest has been 6%, one of our smaller programs. Once again, our engagement throughout the whole United States is still lower than its highest peak back at 36% back in 2020. So this tells me that the activities that we have been doing to kind of engage our employees, particularly some of the social programs, seem to be working, and we are pretty much in line with industry standards. A number of our upcoming events that I've mentioned a few moments ago, we'll give you dates, and hopefully you can get these on your calendars. Like I said, May 4th through the 10th was Public Service Appreciation Week. September 17th, we're right now planning our Service Awards ceremony. This will be, again, our second Service Awards ceremony, and we are really excited. We're just right now pulling the data together, and then once again, Chairman and Vice Chairman, we will send you both an invitation and the other members of council when we get closer to that event, so hopefully you can attend. I know last year's President and I was there. She presented. It was just a really, really great opportunity for us to see our city council members there. So once again, we'll be encouraging you guys to come as well. Once again, November 11th is our Veterans Day program. Last year, we had that program over at the Bon Secours Center. And once again, we'll probably have that program again over there this year to recognize our veterans, both our employees that are veterans and veterans in the community. And then also around December 10th, we're going to have our year-end holiday social. And we're looking at this being a combination of an employee band and just basically doing some fun things so our employees can basically sit back, hang out, and chill with each other for a little while. Okay, and when Mayor Abula came on board, he wanted us to also do an engagement survey. He wanted to basically sit back and kind of get a sense of a baseline as to what it is the employees experience. So what we did, we once again engaged SIR to perform another engagement survey. The key topics addressed in that survey included assessing workplace culture, engagement and satisfaction, examining retention drivers and turnover risk, understanding perceptions of leadership, and exploring growth opportunities within leadership. It was a 15-minute survey. That survey was sent out from April 14th to April 29th, and we had about 810 survey participants throughout the whole enterprise that participated in that survey. We just went over the final information with SIR earlier this week, and these are the key themes that came out of that data. Employees are deeply committed to serving their community. Perceptions of performance and trust vary by role, meaning our directors and our deputy directors seem to have a better understanding of trust versus our frontline individuals. Workplace culture challenges are a common concern, and we know that, and we know that. Middle managers are seeking growth, but also need more support. So basically, what we've identified is that a lot of our middle managers were either going outside of the organization to try to get some aspect of support for their professional growth. However, I am really pleased as I talk about our training opportunities to determine. You can see what we're looking at there. But I'm also really excited because if we go back and look at the numbers for those employees that are using our tuition assistance program and also our programs with Reynolds Community College, the word seems to be going out and people are starting to utilize those programs. And then lastly, transparency and communications are areas of improvement that were identified by SIR. The next steps on what we will be doing, like I mentioned a few moments ago, we just received the final information from SIR, and with us now having Mr. Donald, who is our Chief Administrative Officer on deck, the Mayor's office, the CAO's office, my office, and others will sit back and kind of put together an action plan as to how we're going to utilize that data to move the organization forward. We'll continue with our employee engagement activities and events, and we'll continue to monitor and measure the effectiveness of our current activities. I want to pause there to see if there's any questions relative to engagement.
I don't have any. Thank you.
I'll withhold mine till the end.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the next area we want to talk about is training and development. I'm really pleased on the items that we've been doing in the training and development space. If we go back to 2023 when I was first hired, that was when we created our training and development team to better address the career needs and development needs of our leaders and employees. We basically had 4 pillars that we were looking at based upon the 2023 survey: onboarding, career development, leadership development, and performance management. Some of the key activities that we did in FY24 and FY25 are on the screen. I do want to draw your attention to the second bullet. Basically, we developed and launched a learning curricula to address key identified learning gaps for leaders, aspiring leaders, and employees looking to develop their competencies. Some of those courses included our new leader orientation, interpersonal communications, performance management, emotional intelligence, unconscious bias, and so you can lead. The other thing I want to focus again is the launch of our tuition assistance program in partnership with Reynolds Community College. And I've already mentioned stats as to how that program is going. The other thing that we did in FY25, we changed our learning management system from Wavelength to NeoGov Learn. NeoGov is one of our systems that we currently have on here in the city that we use for our learning for our applicant tracking system and things of that nature. So what I'm trying to do is expand our technologies that we currently have. So we have launched our once again, our learning management system through NeoGov. We did our annualized training. That was the key kickoff on this, in which what we did every year, we have a series of trainings that all employees must go through as part of our cybersecurity training. Cybersecurity training is sexual harassment, workplace violence, ethics, those kinds of training. And then that was really exciting. And then we began the planning of the NeoGov Perform module. Our strategic priorities for FY26 is basically 4 or 5 items. The first one is to create a thematic approach to developing leaders. What we want to do for focus on FY26 is to establish and communicate clear expectations on what it is that a leader needs to do and how they need to manage with their staffs. The second is our NeoGov Perform program, and basically this is another module within the NeoGov NeoGov system, which we're going to start our performance management process. This is a electronic performance management system that we're putting in place. We are right now beta testing that system starting next month. We have a number of offices or departments that are being part of that. Those departments are HR, PDR, Parks and Recreation, also the Office of the Mayor and Office of the Council Chief of Staff. So we're going to use those offices to basically fine-tune the program with the hopes of launching that in FY27. In addition to that, we have expanded our new employee orientation and onboarding program. And how we've expanded that is that normally when HR, my team deals with a new employee, they normally afterwards you go away and work and do whatever. What we're doing right now, we are putting together a process to monitor those individuals for the first 60 to 90 days of their employment. They're getting the services, resources, and things that they need. And if they're not, we have some early warning systems right now to help us in being able to ensure that our employees are successful. We are also in the midst of getting ready to pilot our new leader orientation program. And this is going to basically be a 4-month cohort based upon blending learning. We will have scheduled monthly engagements, different activities that the individuals will perform. It will focus on core management and leadership competencies. And then we will graduate these cohorts at the end. So once again, we will do these 4-month cohorts based upon leaders of the organization. Our goal is to try to have every leader who to go through this program or go through a similar program so that we're all on the same page of the same book on how we lead here at the city of Richmond. What we're doing right now is called a summer boot camp, a summer policy camp, in which what we are doing is training all of our individuals who have people who report to them on compliance on our major policies. This is sexual harassment, workplace violence, our corrective action process, et cetera. Those are 4-hour training sessions we're doing over the summer. They are co-facilitated by both my learning department and also my employee relations department. And we've had 4 classes thus far, and we've received a lot of positive feedback. And what it has been, we've had a lot of leaders who've been here for a long time, but didn't really have the training. So what we're trying to do is to capture those individuals, get them some baseline training, and then as time goes along, we'll try to incorporate them in our other programs. And then another program we've been working on for the last couple of years is the Mayor's Fellow Program, in which we do a structured onboarding and learning experience for students that are in college. It's a 10-week internship program that includes an orientation, ongoing mentorship, and then also at the end of the summer experience, these individuals have to present a project which overviews what they've done over in the summer. We've done this for the last couple of years, and it's been very, very positive. We have 10 students that are in the program this year. I think last year we had like 7, so we are really, really pleased. We have a person from Yale that's in the program, UVA, University of North Carolina, and these are students that are in the area, heard about our program, applied for the program, and are working in the program. So we're really excited about this program. Any questions about training?
I will say this would be an opportunity for you to catch your breath, and maybe we will ask some questions about those previous slides.
Okay.
I had 2 slides I wanted to make comments on, but I'll open it up to my colleague first. Thank
Sure.
you.
I actually, I do have questions about the leadership development, but I was going to go back to sort of some of the higher level statistics you gave around employee engagement and retention. I think you mentioned that there's a 10.1% is that turnover rate?
Mhm.
Can you, I think you might have said this, but can you remind me what is that in relation to sort of national standards?
National standards, particularly working in government organizations, now it's around anywhere between 10 to 15% turnover nationally. I think we're at the 10.3% this year, which is really exciting. But once again, our number has went down over the last couple of years. Back at 2021, 2022, during the pandemic, we were as high as 15.7%. And since FY23, 22, our numbers have consistently went down. FY23, we went to 12.2%, FY24, 11%, and now we are at 10.3%. So our turnover rate seems to be pretty going down, which is good. And I think in part of that is based upon some of the initiatives that we started putting in from the HR space. And I'm like I said, I believe that's something that I'm correlating to help us with that reduction in turnover rate.
And then in the most recent employee engagement
Mhm.
survey that was conducted under Mayor Avula's direction, what did employees sort of self-identify what some of those things are that are keeping them here?
Yes, they did, but I don't have the data in front of me. Basically, I can do that by referral if you're interested in themes of what employees said. But for the most part, one of the key things on that slide is that employees are they're really excited working here. Employees are deeply committed to serving their community. So we do know that people are very excited about what they do and being representatives of the city of Richmond. That's how I interpret that. However, On the flip side about that, we do understand that there are some challenges in culture and climate in some departments versus other departments. And that is something we're definitely going to have to drill into and identify what those items are and come up with methodologies of being able to eradicate those problems. The other thing, on that same thing, on the standpoint of the culture, I kind of linked the trust pieces where there as well, because our frontline supervisors, frontline staff, for some reason, do not trust senior leadership. And we need to kind of drill down a little bit more to understanding the why behind that, and to put in a pedagogy to determine how do we manage that. I think the standpoint about the training, I think we're going to be able to handle that through our training and development program and what we've been doing over the last few months and what we'll continue to do. And then the transparency and communication, I think that's an institutional challenge that we'll have to work with the mayor's office and the CAO to kind of come up with pedagogies in order to solve those problems.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like what I've seen or what I'm hearing from this is sort of there is a kind of a clear line between the satisfaction and engagement of frontline workers versus sort of middle management, which may have other issues more related to sort of training and continuous education, and then the leadership piece of this who are feel highly engaged in a part of the process.
Yeah.
In terms of internally, like, have you seen this work? I mean, I'm sure this is not unique to the city of Richmond, and I totally agree that everybody that I've run across in City Hall seems to deeply care for the work that they're doing. But what are other municipalities doing to sort of engage those frontline workers and make them feel more involved and more autonomous in this process?
I can't really speak for all organizations, but I can talk from a real general space. Normally, what the data basically suggests is that based upon what we have, we're going to have to do more focus groups to understand what does that mean. Because what I feel is engagement versus what Ms. Morris feels is engagement, two different things. So we got to go in there and drill down a little bit more to understand exactly what it is that the employees want, and then build our program around that. So, like I said, these themes are things, like I said, we just got them, and we have not really had time to put through a roadmap or nothing how to address them right now. Yeah. I believe, that we just have not had a chance to do it as of yet.
And I guess maybe what I'm getting at too is sort of how do you get that candid feedback from frontline workers when there is a perception that maybe candor is not valued?
That's going to be a challenge. I'm going to be transparent about that. I think the issue for me is, I think how I would go about doing that is, once again, we're going to have to go out and talk to folks. I mean, in addition, because I think once we only had 800 employees that did the survey. It really wasn't it's like about 20% or something like that from a statistical perspective. So that wasn't bad. That was not bad. But once again, we have to go back in and look at the data a little bit more to see where those came from. And then I think what we need to do is really go back and have some focus groups and have some conversations. I know the mayor is very, very hands-on, and he'll probably be going through and talking to the folks, and we'll kind of collect that data and then come up with a plan on how we plan of action. I hope I'm answering your question.
Yep. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, you touched on some of the points I wanted to highlight, mainly the turnover rate and the separation rate. Very interested to see, like, is that trending up or down? And,
Yes.
It's great to see the downward trend. And I think, the items that are on that slide speak to why we're in that positive territory here. I mean, $20 minimum wage, moving to VRS, the wellness clinics. And I was excited to learn about the new leader orientation program, because I think, in speaking to a feeling of some of the folks in the middle who maybe don't see that upward opportunity, investing in the skill sets to move up and be moving up successfully is just terrific to hear, because I think very often in an organization of our size and scope, we do have turnover, and often we are relying on people to step in and cover that newly vacated space as an acting XYZ. And so to know that we are providing resources so they can be successful in that, I think is wonderful. So I appreciate this report. Let me see if I have any other questions here. I think you touched on a lot of these. one thing we will be, I don't know if you're going to stay for the full meeting, but at the end,
Yeah.
we are going to have discussion of our timeline going forward for presentations for the remainder of our meetings. And I know we were interested in the vacancy updates. So when do you think we might be able to have that?
Right now, my team is compiling the data for the last fiscal year of that. So we hope to have that within the next week or so. Because I think that there's an ordinance out there that says we have to give that to council each quarter. And so right now, with us just coming off of the FY26 salary increases that we have to put into the system, we're probably about a week and a half behind on some of our normal monthly activities, primarily due to the raises that we have to put in the system. So my team hopes to have that report completed by the end of the week or early next week at the latest, so that we can meet the July 31st timeline by council per
Okay.
ordinance.
Great. All right. Well, we'll work that into the queue for the remainder of our GovOp meetings. So,
Right. Okay. That's fine.
okay. So open audits.
Okay. Well, like I said, we still, like I said, when I started here, when I met with the audit committee back in April, we had 36 items that I inherited. I got it down to 6. Right now, we are still working through these 6 items between internal audit and ourselves. Internal audit has been a really, really good partner with us and really helping us see what it is that we're looking at, what they need in order to clear off a number of these items. The 2 items about vehicle utilization, we have an internal work team that's kind of looking into that, as a person from CL's office, a person from fleet, also the director of general services. We have a plan in place. We just have to get ready to finalize that and get it to the auditor just to make sure he is okay with that. But the other items, we're at a really, really good place with the other items. And like I said, all these are items that happened before I got here, but I am owning them. And like I said, right now we're pretty much in a good space. A lot of these items have been submitted to the auditor for their additional review. When we submitted it before, they gave us back some more feedback. So we're just playing that game so that we hopefully can be able to get these items removed from our list soon.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? No. All right.
Great.
Mr. Alexander, thank you for joining us today.
Great. Thank you.
All right. I believe our next presentation is Circular Economy. Tara Warden, Sustainability Manager for the Office of Sustainability. Oh, reports on reports. Okay, you're right. Sorry. Just get so excited about circular economy. I wanted to jump right into it. All right, Maria Garnett, thank you for being here. We welcome you to present on our reports on reports part 2. Maria is our council policy analyst, and she's been working with Will Perkins, our senior council legislative services manager, both within our office of council chief of staff. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair. I will hop right into the presentation then, since you covered who I am and what I do. So if round 1 of the Report of Reports project that Will presented in April was really about identifying all of these reports and trying to see them in one place, I thought of round 2 as was really about learning, trying to understand a little bit more about what it takes to actually submit these reports. So today, I'll tell you a little bit about what we've done here in round 2, our methodology. I'll describe our big picture findings from our work, particularly with colleagues in the administration. I'll go over what we as staff in our office think are some useful questions for the committee and for council to consider about reports that are required to be submitted to council. And I will describe our sort of ideas and our proposal for ways to continue moving this work forward that would be really valuable. So in terms of what we did here in round 2 to learn more about these reports, I started out by soliciting feedback from the clerk's office about what they do to manage the submission of required reports by boards and commissions. And I'm happy to say that, as always, the clerk's office is wonderful to work with on this, and they make it really easy for boards and commissions to submit required annual reports. They send them a form. There's a way that they can fill out their attendance record. Everything can be submitted online. And as you know, the clerk's office manages, the submission of any report to council, and they provide a list on their website of board and commission reports and their completion status. I really wanted to focus on city department reports in this round of the project for a couple of reasons. The core work of government is done and captured by those reports, and for that reason, there's a lot of taxpayer money involved. So our partners in the various deputy CAO portfolios have been super, super helpful in just learning more about all of these reporting requirements. They helped us determine what the level of effort is for these reports. They helped us identify the most recent submissions, including some that had not been available on the website. And they provided notes or any other important context for your consideration. And we did some very high-level analysis of level of effort and recent completion status of those city department reports. So we have an updated number for you, bearing in mind that there are probably still other reports that we still haven't captured by this effort. But that total number, as of what we know, is about 81 reports, mostly annual reports required of boards, commissions, and affiliate organizations. The city department report requirement is about 27. That's up from 2 from round 1. And note again that that does not include the annual strategic action plan reports that are required of every city agency and that I believe are the focus of the Avula administration's new sort of emphasis on strategic planning and KPIs. Most of the reports that are mandated of city departments require moderate to substantial effort to prepare. So I came up with these effort levels as a reflection of how much on top of the standard, work requirement does this report require. And please note that there were 4 reports of city departments for which we either didn't get a classification of level of effort or that level of effort is unknown. This slide here organizes the city department reports by the level of effort, and we wanted to make sure to provide in parentheses which entity within city government is responsible for those reports so that you can kind of see at a glance who is responsible for a higher or lower number of high or low effort reports. Most reports that are required of city departments to be submitted to council are being submitted. That was 17 of the 27, or 63%, although no recent submission record could be found for 10 of the 27 reports. That's 37%. I want to really pause here and emphasize that that's not necessarily a problem. So there may be a report listed, and if it's not actually applicable in a given year, there wouldn't be a record of that. It also seems like in some cases, the information is still being submitted to council, just in a way that may be harder to track. If we wanted to organize it by committee, most of those unsubmitted reports are within the jurisdiction of finance, though a couple are within the jurisdiction of this committee. And if we think of it by DCAO portfolio, again, finance and administration, which also loops in operations, does have most of them. This slide gives some of the initial context graciously shared by our colleagues in the administration about why some of these reports don't have a recent record of submission. I'll note that for some of them, for several in fact, there's this comment of no recent institutional memory of this reporting requirement. So that means that folks who are in these roles and been doing this work for a long time maybe haven't even heard of this report before, or certainly don't have recollection of being asked for the report. And so I think that speaks to kind of the purpose of this whole exercise is thinking about not only what's required to be reported, but how it's being used. So these are those key questions that we as staff would like to respectfully invite the committees and council to consider. One, would there be value in trying to centralize publication of required government agency reports in a similar way as the clerk's office does it for boards and commissions? This is especially important because of the various submission methods, and we think it could be easier to find it all in just one place. Next, and a bit more substantively, how does council's use of the information compare to the level of effort required to submit these reports? And then similarly, what changes could be made to sort of maximize the cost effectiveness of required reporting? In other words, to align that level of effort and the utility. So our administration colleagues and we think it could be good to try to work within the committee structure, starting with the finance committee, depending on what Chair Robertson is interested in, to look even deeper at these reports, identify root causes and try to address them for those that aren't being submitted, and identify reporting requirements that could be changed or eliminated. And we're also considering soliciting additional feedback from non-government entities who rely on the information in these reports. So that could be advocacy groups or even reporters. We would be prepared to submit round 3 of the Reporter Reports project to you all either at the committee or in writing by November of this year. And we would hope to present that sort of effort utility analysis for selected finance reports. So that is sort of the content that I wanted to deliver to you all. Did you have any questions or are there any comments that you would like to make on this topic?
Thank you so much, Maria. And, again, this isn't about, I think the goal of this is to try and understand what is out there, what is still needed, because some of these do take up substantial effort. And I appreciate your, dividing these out into minimal effort, moderate, and substantial. And I think we need to be cognizant of, there may have been times where this information was required based on an event or an issue. Are they still required? And then some maybe don't really elicit a lot of conversation in the moment, but are good as a historical record that we will want to have. I think, the pushing this out into the committees where these reports are, filtering up makes sense for a combined level of, stage 3. Those would be my initial comments, but open it up to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of I think that one, any time we can centralize government publications, particularly in a way that is, readable and approachable for the public, is always a good thing. In your research, did you find any sort of like best practices amongst local governments on how they either categorize those reports by committee or by department, or what is sort of the way that those are organized in transparent governments?
Sure. We did not do a specific best practice deep dive as part of this round. We're happy to try to look more specifically at that going forward. But yes, agreed. Transparency and ease of access is what I'm familiar with as some of the best practices. And so that would be the key thing. Wherever it's stored, the idea that you can find it easily if you need it, I think would be the goal.
And then, and I echo my colleague's sentiment about this not being sort of a gotcha and more of an exploratory exercise. But I am curious, like most of these reports are sort of by ordinance, correct? So for those that haven't been submitted and there's no record of recent, like what are some of the mechanisms to getting those reports back on track?
I think that's a great question. Adam, is there anything that you would like to share about just kind of how you all have been treating this process from your perspective? Because I think he could speak better to that than I could.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Council Member. My name is Adam Hull, Policy Advisor with the City. Appreciate the opportunity to weigh in and just to provide a little bit of context. I do think it is worth noting that the administration through this effort has been a very willing partner with Council staff and the committee in this effort. We acknowledge the collaborative efforts and the hard work of Ms. Garnett and Mr. Perkins. As has been mentioned, we've been at the table for these conversations. And regarding some of the reports that have not been submitted as required, this, to be fully transparent, is not something that we've shied away from. In fact, these are reports that we've self-identified, and the reporting requirement are items that we reported to Mr. Perkins and Ms. Garnett. So for the current state, while it may not be ideal, really what we are looking to do from the administration's perspective is be more forward-looking on what is it that City Council committees, City Council as a body would like to see regarding these reports and the utility. Some of these reporting requirements were put into place over 20 years ago based on information and organizational structure that were present at that time. And so we really do applaud this committee's efforts to take a fresh look at this and determine what may be of the greatest utility moving forward. So all that context aside, and to the council member's question, I think that our administration's perspective is that we would really like to have a good substantial dialogue with city council, with the committees, to determine which of the ordinance requirements are desired to be resumed before we start spinning those back up because of the substantial effort that likely will be required. Once we begin to have some of those conversations, we can certainly bring in the appropriate stakeholders to weigh in on what some recommendations may be for how those reports could look into the future. Again, not dwelling on the past or current state, but really getting a better understanding of what city council as the consumers of this information would like to see so that we can partner moving forward. The last piece that I will mention that, of course, working with the new CAO, Mr. Donald, we also want to just make sure that he is brought into these discussions as well so that he can execute his vision in alignment with this initiative and city council.
Thank you. Yes, I think administration was more excited about this report on reports than council even. So it is a good collaborative effort to make sure we're doing the work that is actually useful.
And I appreciate that. I don't, I think, I was just joking that I think report on reports is the most local government thing I've ever heard. And I certainly do not want, unnecessary reports. But I do think, I would just implore us that in addition to obviously the committees in which these reports come out of, that the council as a whole has an opportunity to discuss each of the merits of these, because some of these, I think, in the finance administration, I'm thinking to myself, like, I would love to, know about like the annual general fund surplus report. I may not serve on the finance committee. Well, I do as an alternate, but I would like to know that as a whole. So that's number one, is just sort of making sure that the entire body is engaged in, obviously the committee leading that, but the entire body's engaged in that conversation. And then two, I think for the ones that we are considering or the administration feels may be like sort of out of date and unnecessary, that we just have, for those of us who are new, if there's an ability to find sort of like the origination of those and like the why, because I imagine that some of these are pretty reactionary, and I understand why they would sunset, and some may be, necessary, and they still may be heavy lift, but maybe we can talk about the scheduling of them so that they're not as onerous on the administration in terms of like timing. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, now I think we're on to presentation 3. Thank you.
Well, can you actually start from the first slide? Prettier picture. Here we go. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Councilmember Abubakar. My name is Tara Worden. I'm the Sustainability Manager in the Office of Sustainability. I'm presenting today on the circular economy and the concept and sort of how it can take root in Richmond. This conversation and presentation stems from a presentation that we did in March to this body about our sort of waste strategy. Our office has been very focused on looking at our regional waste strategies as a collective whole. And this has risen to the top as a really important topic. So what is the circular economy? It's an economic system that aims to minimize waste and pollution by keeping products, materials, and resources in use for as long as possible through strategies like reuse, repair, refurbishment, remanufacturing, and recycling. When we think about traditional linear models of economic systems, this is an economy that takes, makes, uses, and disposes of commodities. And in a circular model, commodities are designed to be consumed, reused, repaired, collected, recycled, redistributed, and remanufactured into infinite iterations of the raw material. And instead of paying to dispose of materials in a circular model, waste streams are transformed into revenue streams. Why are cities leading this revolution? So the circular economy is not going to emerge on its own. This process is going to require collaborative efforts across value chains, including individuals, the private sector, and importantly, different levels of government, including local government. And cities are uniquely positioned to drive circular economy transformation because they control key levers. We control direct financial incentives. We pay the landfill bills. We set waste management contracts, and we have economic development incentives that can prioritize circular businesses. We also have a convening authority. We bring together businesses, institutions, and residents in ways that can create circular loops. And we're home to universities, hospitals, and major employers that generate waste streams consistently. Many European cities in 2015 adopted circular economy policies because they recognized these advantages, and American cities are now catching up, one of the first being Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte has shown us that this system works, and I'm going to just dive into a brief example of how this can takes root at the local level. Meet the Innovation Barn in Charlotte. This is a partnership model between the city and a managing nonprofit where the city owns a building and this managing nonprofit leases it for $1 per year. Envision Charlotte is the managing partner, and they have a $1 million annual budget that comes from a mixture of funding sources, including corporate sponsors, grants, tenant rent, and earned revenue. And what's inside the Innovation Barn? It includes business incubation labs. So there's a plastics lab that converts takeout containers into reused materials, a glass crusher that turns bottles into construction sand, an urban lumber mill that creates furniture from construction waste, and an aquaponics system that grows fish and vegetables in closed loops. There's also community engagement spaces where they host circular economy educational field trips, and they host a number of different networking sites for community groups and speakers. And there's public tours twice weekly that are almost always booked completely. There's also revenue generating amenities on site. A coffee shop is featured where they train homeless individuals as baristas, a craft beer tap room that sponsors local brewery partnerships, and a retail space selling products made from upcycled materials. So in Charlotte, these numbers that matter to decision makers after the initial investment from the city, within the first year, 8 businesses were incubated, 7,000 visitors and 1,000 tours were provided, and over 2,000 volunteer hours were mobilized. There's a consistent economic impact where tenants are paying a rent, generating consistent revenue for the managing partner. There's corporate partnerships that provide ongoing funding streams. They primarily partner with larger institutions in Charlotte, including Bank of America Stadium and Atrium Health. They also, as I mentioned, the field trips, tours, and visitors bring revenue to the district where it's located. And most importantly, from our office's standpoint, the environmental impact cannot be understated. There's hundreds of tons of potential waste that's diverted from landfills annually. These local businesses are able to meet and achieve their sustainability goals on site through partnerships. And this model is being replicated nationwide. And this is the model that we're considering here in Richmond. And I'll touch on why Richmond is perfect for this type of setup. Our unique competitive advantages include our university partnerships. VCU provides research capabilities and student engagement. Our growing tech sector, our innovation ecosystem already attracts entrepreneurs looking for sustainable business models. Our historic preservation expertise, we excel at adaptive reuse projects, which plays to our strengths. Our regional leadership position, so we have the opportunity to be the first circular economy center in Virginia and also in the regional mid-Atlantic. And we have a strong manufacturing heritage. Our textile and industrial history provides a foundation for materials innovation. And there's already a lot of momentum building locally that supports this type of circular system. VCU's supply chain management and analytics degree program in the School of Business is churning out research and students and events focused on circularity. Our local Granova, it's a fairly large international biotech firm that its mission is to promote a circular economy through the washing and reuse of plastics. VCU's Department of Fashion and Design and Merchandising supplies textiles through their pop-up stop, where textiles are sent currently to Danville to be reused as reusable materials in new textiles. And local artisans are building an urban wood circular system by reusing materials from downed trees to make furniture. And most recently, the Repair Cafe RVA has started hosting pop-ups to teach folks how to repair and reuse and mend and sew and fix lamps, bikes, electronics, etc. So where we are in this phase is we're just starting. So we are currently conducting a materials flow analysis, which is sort of analyzing our waste streams, predominant waste streams. Right now we're focused on looking at construction and demolition. Due to the high volume of development, there's quite a bit of construction debris that can be potentially reused and put back into the building supply system. We're looking at food waste. There's a large institutional presence here with VCU, hospitals, the state government. It creates a consistent supply of food waste. We're also looking at textiles to leverage our manufacturing heritage to produce a closed loop textile system, and plastics, which there's a regional gap that we could potentially fill for plastics recycling. We are also continuing to develop partnerships and secure some initial corporate sponsor commitments, and also thinking about what anchor businesses would be appropriate to pull into this sort of schematic that we're conjuring up. I'll end just by saying that Richmond has the opportunity to be Virginia's first and the Mid-Atlantic's premier circular economy innovation center, and we can transform Richmond's waste challenge into our next economic development success story. Through collaborative partnerships and a dedicated mixed funding streams, we're hoping to position our city as the leader in this. I'll pause for questions about this presentation. I do have a few slides from my colleague Daniel Klein on a different topic completely, but if we want to discuss this, we can.
Yeah, let's take the opportunity to speak to this topic before we transition into the cool kids. So, Councilmember Abubaker, any comments on circular economy or questions?
Yeah, I mean, I love this idea, and I think it's just sort of a purely logistics thing at this point. And we have a lot of great startups in Richmond that are in that sort of space. I'm thinking of like, was it Temper Pack and others? Like, what are some of as you're going through this, like, what are some of the businesses or organizations that you're eyeing or having conversations with that you think would be good for this?
Yeah, there's a couple that come to mind. One is like a mattress recycling effort. There's a large mattress company that's located here that
Carpenter.
Yeah, exactly. They've recently purchased Casper mattresses, which is sort of more well known. They would be sort of a prime partner in thinking about things. In thinking about the way that Charlotte has developed their model. Some of those revenue generating businesses on site, so the cafe, they're started in London. They have expressed interest in setting up a similar sort of workforce development training program here. There's the textiles is one of the largest sort of opportunity zones that we've really identified just because of our industrial past with manufacturing cotton. The infrastructure is here and sort of the underlying talent is here to have those materials reused on site.
And I mean, one of the big things, well, one, I think that Goodwill of Central Virginia would be a great partner. Having worked with them, they do a lot of textile recycling and processing. But a lot of these will require a lot of space. I mean, they're sort of industrial companies. Like, where do you, knowing that we're kind of in this this tiny 62 square mile space, and we're constantly building, like, where have you thought about where that would be, or identified some of our vacant buildings that would make sense for this?
We've worked with the real estate division here, that they've helped us identify some potential city-owned properties to look into. That's an ongoing conversation. I don't have there's no clear outlier that makes a lot of sense at the moment. But the constrained elements of a city by nature, we want to preserve our industrial land for these types of uses. So there's always that balance of trying to figure out where it makes most sense.
And if we had for-profit businesses in that space, like, would that be taxable real estate at that point and taken off the?
Well, that's a good question. If
You can get back to me with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just kind of interested in how Charlotte manages that.
manage the revenue
Yeah.
streams.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I can circle back with you on that
Yeah.
question.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited about this. Let us know if there's an appropriate time for you to come back and provide an update. But great work. Thank you.
Wonderful. And at this time, I'll introduce my colleague Daniel Klein to speak on the Cool Kit.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me. I'm Daniel Klein. I'm the Sustainability Coordinator for the Office of Sustainability. I'm going to talk about the Richmond Cool Kit, which we just released, and I have copies for you all. This is a urban heat mitigation guide. What I mean by that is these are strategies that help reduce urban heat. In this case, urban spaces get hotter than rural and suburban spaces, mostly due to the amount of buildings, the roads, the parking lots, and the lack of vegetation. So this document outlines 25 strategies that the city can consider to integrate into future projects, whether it's capital improvement projects or maintenance projects. A lot of the resources in this guide, can be integrated into city practices already. And it has a lot of resources for city staff, questions to ask when you're designing a project. But it's also a resource for the community, for businesses, for homeowners, things that they can integrate into their own private property. The four major categories are urban greening, that refers to things like street trees, urban forestry, green infrastructure. Blue space refers to splash pads and fountains. Those all help cool down the entire community that they're in. Shade, both built shade in this case would be things like shade sails, shade structures, shade walls. Simply providing shade for folks is really important for protecting citizens and residents while they're navigating the city, whether it's waiting for the bus, whether it's in a bike lane, whether it's at a public event, like playing a basketball game at a city park or a dog park or a playground. These types of remedies are really helpful for preventing heat-related illness and building heat resilience into our community. Number 3 is smart surfaces. That really refers to the color and the materials that we use to build our built environment. So obviously dark materials, and certain materials tend to get hotter in the sun. If we can apply some of these smart surface technologies, that will help extend the lifespan of a lot of our infrastructure. Since things expand and contract as they heat and cool, if we can reduce how hot they get, we can extend their lifespan. So things like white topping, which is simply painting a roof white, or even painting a parking lot a lighter color, that helps reflect more light, it absorbs less heat, and it's cooler for the whole neighborhood. And the last one is depaving, which is just impervious surface removal. So that would be like thinking about parts of the city that are overpaved, like parking lots that are underutilized, or roads that are extra wide or could use traffic calming. A lot of times when you remove impervious surface, it's a chance to replace it with something that might suit the community better. Ultimately, this document attempts to provide strategies for city staff. The four main sort of goals of this document are to cool neighborhoods, homes, and businesses, to cool walking, biking, and transit infrastructure, to cool community spaces, parks, libraries, and schools, and to increase climate resilience and well-being for all Richmonders. I want to point to one of the major resources that this document points to, which is the Sustainable Design Standards. A lot of these strategies are already pointed to in that SDS document that Council adopted last year. There are certain thresholds for city projects to be required to meet SDS standards, but that document can be applied more broadly and can help influence projects of any size. Thank you for having me. I'm here to answer some questions.
Okay, thank you so much. I had the benefit of seeing this when I visited the SRC committee, Sustainable and Resilient City Committee, formerly Green City Commission. And I mean, I would say one of the things that really jumps out as alarming is page 4, which is the average number of extreme heat days per year in Richmond. And so, you know, what we're looking at is there's it shows the number of annual days that it's over 100. And prior to 2005, you know, the average was 1 day over 100. From 2015 to 2044, we're jumping up to 5 days over 100. Keep going out into the future, 2070 to 2099, we're looking at 36 days. And so that's a really terrifying thing. And then, you know, the days over 95 also growing at an alarming rate. So clearly there are strategies that other communities have employed, and people here in Richmond, right, also to help reduce the heat that one is going back up into the atmosphere, but then also that's affecting those of us here on the ground. So to the extent that we can start to see these strategies employed so we can adapt to these changing conditions, like we've got to do that 100%. And I'm excited by this work. Can you answer, is this going to be incorporated into our sustainable design standards, or how does that interplay with, how does this interplay with that document? Thanks.
Sure. So this comes from one of the 136 actions in RVA Green 2050.
Right.
There are 2 other actions that would refer to this work. One is a smart surfaces program and a depaving program. Those are 2 of the other actions. So ensuring that those programs can be built out would really help in terms of providing those resources for community members. For internal staff, we anticipate hosting workshops where city staff can bring their projects. We can look at the cool kit together and talk through how to integrate this more into city projects going forward. So I see this as one of many considerations that city staff have to take when they're thinking about future projects. If it's bus transit, that's ridership, equity, et cetera. But heat resilience and flood resilience should be a factor in this. And I think this document helps provide some of those questions that city staff can ask when they're thinking about this. To your point about it getting hotter, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time is now. And that extends to a lot of the strategies in this document. I tried to use examples that already exist here in Richmond to show that we already are doing a lot of this. My hope with this document is that it helps to formalize how we think about this, to extend it to more projects than just the ones that I use as examples in that document.
100%. Thank you. And, you know, I think we talked about this in other meetings, but it's not just about, you know, cooling the space. It's about all the ripple effects that happen when we are experiencing extreme heat. You know, crime goes up, calls to domestic abuse hotlines go up, mental health deteriorates. It just has such an impact beyond the obvious. So incredibly important work, and I'm grateful that you're with the city contributing to this. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk, I believe that concludes our presentations for the day, and we can move on to papers for consideration.
The paper for consideration is item 1, ordinance 2025-136 to repeal city code concerning the classifications of council liaison, council policy analyst, council budget analyst, and the council public relations specialist, respectively, and to amend city code concerning the city chief Council Chief of Staff appointment and duties for the purpose of providing for the appointment of employees in such classifications by the Council Chief of Staff. That paper is before the committee.
Thank you so much. And just to refresh everyone, because I think it's been out there for a little while now, but the intent of this paper is to make the Council Chief of Staff's office more in line with our other appointees' offices, and to make sure that we're focusing our time here in chambers on, really critical council work. And some of these appointments don't necessarily need to be conducted in a public venue. They are HR protocols. So it doesn't change the reporting structure of our liaisons. And I believe we are at the stage now where the language is crystal clear on that. So folks are comfortable with the paper as it stands. But I believe at this moment, we will open it up to public comment and then bring it back to the body to discuss and vote. Thanks.
Is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak in opposition to this paper? Is there anyone in the chamber that wishes to speak in support of this paper? Madam Chair, seeing none, regarding this item, the public hearing is now closed and back to the committee.
Thank you. Any discussion, members?
I would like to make a motion to advance this to the full body.
Second.
The committee is voting on the motion for ordinance 2025-136 to council with the recommendation to approve. Vice Chair Abubakar?
Aye.
Chair Jordan?
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Thank you so much. All right, let's move on to our second paper, please.
Item 2, Resolution 2025-R01, to authorize the utilization of the design build procurement method for the construction of the Canoe Run Park CSO storage tank project. That paper is before the committee.
Thank you so much. And I believe we have someone from administration that can give an overview of this project. Thank you.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairperson Jordan and Councilwoman Abubakar. My name is Robert Stone, Deputy Director of Public Utilities. Just a brief introduction to this paper. Richmond, like many of the older cities in the country and throughout the world, has a combined sewer system. The city's been working for many decades now to address and mitigate the impacts of combined sewer overflow to the James River. So back in, I guess, 2020, the General Assembly passed legislation that required the city to, I guess, kind of refresh and accelerate completion of our CSO control program. That legislation was incorporated into our special order by consent with the state. It required us to develop an interim plan and a final plan. Those have both been developed and submitted and approved by the Commonwealth, by DEQ. Currently, the interim plan projects we're fortunate to get funded with ARPA money from the state. Most recently, in the past General Assembly session, the state appropriated $100 million of grant funding for Richmond for the CSO program. We've chosen to use that funding to advance one of our two remaining unfunded projects in the final plan, that being the Canoe Run CSO storage tank. So there's three basic methods we can use to procure construction in the Commonwealth. The typical one is what's called design bid build, where you go out and you hire a design engineer or architect, complete design, then bid for construction, then construct. A very linear process. The other two are somewhat different. Construction management at risk, where you kind of bring the construction contractor on a little bit early, still during the design process. That's been used on a number of city projects, schools, and community centers. The third is what's called design build, where essentially we go out with a two-step process, a request for qualifications and a request for proposal, to hire a team comprised of both a design firm and a construction contractor. And the advantage to that is it accelerates the process, and they can start doing some elements of construction while they maybe still haven't completed the design 100%. That's important because this funding needs to be obligated by the end of fiscal 26 or June of 2026, or we risk potentially having the state reallocate this funding to some other priority. So this paper is before you because last year in 2024 General Assembly, the Commonwealth changed the procurement rules to require that municipalities seek council approval for any use of construction management at risk or design build construction delivery. So this paper before you here today is requesting to use design build for this project. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Understood. I think at this point, we're going to open up for public comment, and then we will bring it back to discussion, and we may have questions for you at that moment. Thank you.
Is there anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak in opposition to this paper? Is there anyone in the chamber that wishes to speak in support of this paper? Madam Chair, seeing none regarding this item, the public hearing is now closed. Back to the committee.
Thank you. Ms. Abubaker, any questions on this paper?
Not really. I appreciate the sort of the layout of it. I do think that just for the public's benefit, it would be helpful to understand the benefit of doing this process, and sort of clarifying how this won't in fact cause the project to be more expensive than doing the standard design bid build process.
Well, I think the advantages are threefold. One is timeline. It improves the timeline, and then with everything, kind of time is money. So the longer a project takes, the more it's subjected to inflationary pressures. That's one. There is an element of competition in design build, in that with the submissions on the RFP side, they submit both a technical proposal and a sealed price proposal. And those proposals are scored, by code. We're required to have price be a critical factor in the selection of the contractor or team. So that would, that price gets probably a 35% scoring factor out of the 100 points. So it is significant. And let's see. And Ranger, your question?
I think you did.
Oh, the other thing, it brings kind of the more innovative mindset of construction contractors, as opposed to just, hiring one design firm and they've kind of got their idea, but it may not be maybe quite as innovative as you would get under this delivery method. So that's a third advantage to this.
I think that answers my question. I mean, I think I think the big thing I took away from sort of the briefing of this is that it would in fact probably save us money, as opposed to costing more money doing this process for this particular project. So I think the headline for the public is, this is not going to cost the city more money. It's not a non-competitive process. It is still a competitive process. It's going to save the city money.
It does give us a better idea of price earlier in the project, whereas when you do design bid build, you go through the whole design process, you bid it. And a lot of times, particularly recently, the construction market's been pretty turbulent. So we're kind of surprised on the upside when, our bids come in 20, 30+% over our final estimates and. Okay, sure.
Good afternoon, Renee Alvarez, Director of Procurement Services and Interim DCAO Finance. So with the design build, as we've discussed, you just have a better process overall rather than an isolated design, leaving that design alone, handing it over and rebidding it. Now bidding it out, you may incur, and this happens often, you incur many change orders because you couldn't have a solid price bid associated with that design. The second company finds differences, changes, conditions that causes increases to price, also causes increases to schedule. In this method, you're able to identify those costs way up front, and the idea is to eliminate the amount of change orders that occur, lowering that price, because that's where the costs really start incurring during that secondary process. As Mr. Stone was saying, it's a more thoughtful process than just a hard bid in which you're qualifying firms and then you're having a source selection in which you can have interchange, technical interchange, discussions, presentations, negotiations, and so on. So I think for this effort, in order to accelerate the schedule due to the funding constraints, it's probably the most appropriate method that we could use for this type of effort.
Thank you. I think that's very helpful.
Yeah, thank you. And my understanding from talking to our DPU director is that, this is a method that has been utilized by Virginia Beach, Alexandria, VDOT, Hampton Roads. So it's not out of the ordinary for a project of this type to use this method. And certainly if we are at risk of not getting the bulk of the state funds that have been allocated for this work, that would be a huge problem. So appreciate you bringing this paper forward. I think while we're talking about this as a topic, could you just touch on how the public will be informed of construction at this park and where they can get information as things unfold? Thank you.
Yes, we've already held, I guess, one meeting with Councilwoman Lynch. It's in the 5th District. And there will be others as we progress the project, both online and probably some in-person community meetings. We've also been engaging with the city's Department of Rec and Parks to maybe look at how we put the park back together is going to be something maybe a little better than it is today, but within still not adding cost to the project. So.
Got it. Thank you. Well, with that, if there are no other questions, I'll entertain a motion.
Can I get a second, please?
I move to advance this paper to the full body.
Second for approval. Thanks.
Thank you. The committee is voting on a motion to forward Resolution 2025-R0D1 to cancel with a recommendation to approve. Vice Chair Abubakar.
Aye.
Chair Jordan.
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Stone, for that presentation. I believe now we can move on to board vacancies.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Jordan, Vice Chair Abubakar, Pamela Nichols, Council Management Analyst. The vacancy report before you this afternoon consists of current and projected vacancies through November of this year. And starting with the Audit Committee, there's one vacancy for a lawyer admitted to the Virginia State Bar, and we received an application from Zanis Talley, 2nd District resident. And then moving down to the Clean City Commission, there are several vacancies, but we do have one application for an individual who does meet the criteria for a resident at large corporate or community representative, and that application is from Crystal Carter, an 8th District resident. And then moving down to the Sustainability and Resilience Commission, there are 5 vacancies for a city resident who demonstrates expertise in sustainability or equitable climate actions through professional or volunteer efforts or experience. And we have received reappointment applications from Daniel Hart, Louis Werta, and Harrison Wallace. And we received two new applications from Frank Novitzky and Renee Purdy. And I also would like to note that we have been working with the mayor's office, and the mayor's office is actively working to fill both vacancies on the Clean City Commission as well as the Sustainability and Resilience Commission. And those are all the applications that we have received for the vacancies.
Thank you. Okay. Think about these for a moment. Did we have any feedback from our audit committee on the vacancy?
We did receive information from a staff person in the auditor's office who supported, has support for the application submitted.
Okay, that's good to hear. All right, and I believe I asked in our pre-meeting if any of these mayoral appointments that are vacant, the council has opportunity to move on. Do you know if that's the case for these? I mean, where there's no one identified yet that's meant to be appointed by the mayor's office, at what point do we move forward with council recommendations?
Well, currently, for example, for the Clean City Commission, you will note that the code does allow, if a vacancy remains over 180 days, the code allow for, with the approval of that council member, that any council member can then make a recommendation to fill that vacancy. As far as, I would have to go back and look at the code as far as for mayoral vacancies, whether it would also give city council the opportunity to fill those vacancies. I do believe that with the creation of one recent board, that language was included. But beyond that, I haven't seen language where it will give city council the ability to make appointments on behalf of the mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mandy, any comments on these applicants? If not, I think we would move to vote for them in a block.
Okay.
I make a motion to vote for these applicants within a block.
Second.
The committee is voting on the board's recommendations as stated. Vice Chair Abubakar.
Aye.
Chair Jordan.
Aye.
That motion has been approved.
Thank you. I think our last item for the day is our staff report. Mr. Perkins?
Thank you, Chair Jordan. So we have discussed recently potentially modifying the presentation schedule for this committee for the remaining 4 meetings of the year. On your desk, you should have a copy of a potentially revised schedule that I hope you and Ms. Abubakar can discuss together now. Broadly, again, there's 4 meetings on the remainder of the calendar year: September, October, November, and December. November and December, we note, are right around holidays, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving and then Christmas Eve. And so it's our staff recommendation that you consider either rescheduling the November and December meetings and keeping them both as separate meetings. That's version number 1, or canceling the December meeting and rescheduling your November meeting to the first week of December, which is what's listed as version 2 there. We have, so this is I hope you can discuss now sort of which either of those 2 routes or something else that you prefer for the remainder of the year. Thank you.
Okay, I'm a little bit hesitant to cancel a meeting just because you never know what's going to come up. And it's not like there are really any light agenda items. So I would rather go with option 1, which redistributes things a little bit and shifts them to avoid the holidays. I will ask, where do you think it would be appropriate to add in the HR vacancy report, knowing that it is?
It is a quarterly report.
Okay.
And so it could be a an item to add to our next meeting, September, as well as potentially the October meeting. I believe it would be available. I can confirm with my colleagues across the room, but we could have it on the October meeting to discuss essentially the end of Q2 and Q3, and then again in January.
All right. October seems like a winner to us.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, I'll flag as well. I know we've had some discussion of potential update from elections. Is that something you might want to have some update from the office?
I'm sorry, could you just be more specific?
I'm sorry, pardon me. Prior to the November election, it's my understanding traditionally we would entertain an update from the Board of Elections to this committee to, verify things are in order prior to the November general election.
Yes, and I think if memory serves, it's been more that we've had some polling locations change that had to come to us for approval. I don't know if we've ever had just a general update, but could be proven wrong, and certainly seems like a good use of our time, particularly with the new registrar, right?
The only thing I would caution against is that that's a very busy time for that office. So I would not want to unduly burden them with having to come down here to present just for the sake of presenting a month before election. So I would say if it's something necessary, absolutely. If it's something that we feel it would be of value to the body and to the public in that time, great. But otherwise, I would actually punt that meeting until after the elections, just so that they're not, I'm just thinking about how strained that office can be during that time.
Okay, so Mr. Perkins, how about we solicit feedback from the registrar about when he would like to maybe give an update to this committee. An item could be whether or not they're renewing their lease at that location. I know that's been a point of consternation for folks because it's not very readily accessible from the bus transit line. And any other topic they might be interested in. Obviously, the Board of Elections has their own public meetings, so they have avenues to entertain these topics as well. And then I would welcome communication with them if you don't mind doing it, making sure that if there are any polling change locations, we know about that in advance so that we can help make sure it moves through committee quickly, and that we're helping advertise the changes. And we could talk more offline about that. Thanks. Anything else from the staff report?
No, ma'am. Thank you. Just confirming again that the plan is for this committee to not meet in August. Question mark.
That is the plan at this moment. I welcome any feedback from committee or from administration about whether there's something looming out there that we want to hold the date open, or whether or not we can go ahead and cancel it at this moment. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Adam Hull. At this time, the administration isn't anticipating any impacts or burdens if the August meeting is canceled, but we appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Committee? Okay, so as of right now, we are going to not have a meeting in August. We are going to move with version 1 of the redistributed agendas for the remainder of the year and the 2 new dates for November and December. And clerk's office, if you can help us disseminate that, make sure folks have updated their calendars, be much appreciated.
That is noted.
All right. Okay, thank you. Any other items before we close out this meeting? Okay. All right, with that, the Governmental Operations Standing Committee is adjourned.